My name is Jared Matthews, and I am the assistant to the artistic director of the Estonian National Ballet. And those duties are many. I pretty much am in the studio, rehearsing, teaching, taking care of the ballets. I also work directly with Lenar and the general director in terms of season planning, budgeting, and all aspects of how we run the ballet company. Specifically for Louis XIV, the Sun King, I was directly working with Ted pretty much as the second in charge of the ballet with him for the dancer side of the production. And so I was there from the beginning, from his first day in the studio with the dancers and all through the dress rehearsals and tech rehearsals. This production is, it has more of a conceptual theatrical element to it. And sometimes where the music and the storytelling there's subtleties and less about bravura technique and more about the subtleties of the character and their relationships to each other. And it really encompasses Louis's life in a slightly abstract way, but it does encompass how important and what he did for Western society. Most of my career was spent in New York City with American Ballet Theater. In 2014, I made the move and transferred into Houston Ballet. And by chance, my roommate in the dressing room at the theater was Lenar Loris. And he is from Estonia, and he grew up here, and he had been in the company for many years before me. And so we became fast friends. And fast forward 5 years, and he got the offer to become the artistic director. And he asked me, would you like to join me and be the number 2 of the company? And it was an offer I couldn't refuse. And I had been satisfied with my career and everything I had done up until then, but to be in a position to make real positive impact on dancers, it was just something I couldn't say no to. And so 2019, we joined the company together, and we've been friends and colleagues since, and just trying to do the best for the company and for the dancers and for the Estonian public. The main differences between working in America and working for here in Estonia, I would have to say, is that you're part of the opera house. And that's very different to the way the United States dance scene is set up. You have American Ballet Theater, you have New York City Ballet, you have Boston Ballet, and they're ballet companies, but they're not necessarily part of the theater. They might have a strong relationship with a particular theater, but they're not living and working in the building all the time. Here and in Europe, but here specifically, we work in the opera house. We have the opera singers, we have the orchestra, we're all in one building together, and you have this creative environment and energy from the different areas of the art forms performing in one building. And unlike America, also the season runs the entire season. So we start in August. Our first show this year was the end of August, and we constantly perform throughout the year. Whereas in the United States, like with American Ballet Theater, they have the Metropolitan Opera House season. New York City Ballet has their fall season, their winter season, the spring season. Houston Ballet, we had our fall season, then we did Nutcracker, and then we did a program, two different programs in the spring. So there was a break in between, where here in Estonia, we're constantly performing throughout the year. And it's a great thing for the dancers, and the same thing, it's hard because you're constantly getting the next ballet ready as we're working throughout the season. I found one of the challenging parts about creating this work was it almost felt like we were making a movie. And I say that as when we first started out, is like because we're constantly performing, and also in the fall we had different times of isolation of dancers because of COVID protocol. So you only had maybe one Louis, and you only had one Lady in Pink or one Luli. And then not necessarily they were one cast, so you would create on one person, and maybe the 2 other people who are performing it aren't in that process because you had to get material out there. So you're constantly putting the pieces together, and it wasn't until the last 2 weeks of the, this period of time of putting the ballet on that it started to come together, and it felt like we were in the editing room making a movie where we shot this scene here, we shot this scene there, we shot this scene, and then we're combining it. And that was tricky, but we had to be very prepared and organized behind the scenes so that when the dancers came in, we could really put the scenes together quickly and efficiently, knowing where people are within the space. My particular involvement with this ballet is I was right there with the choreographer all the time. I was taking notes. I was sometimes like he needed to just talk things out with me, and not saying I choreographed or anything, but I was really there to try to help him, help the dancers while we were putting this puzzle together throughout the last summer and through the fall season. I coached the principal dancers. I organized the tech rehearsals and really try to run the room for him so he could be a creative force on the side, and I could be the like the sergeant, making things happen, first cast, second cast, who goes in, casting decisions, how do we switch things, so he could just create and be free to just work on the creative aspect of it. Looking at how I transitioned into this career change, when I was with American Ballet Theater, I started teaching company class probably in 2011, and I was still a soloist dancer in the company, but I had I worked very closely with David Howard, and I had this passion for wanting to give company class, because company class is very different from normal ballet class. And so because ABT is a touring company, I just happened to say to to Kevin's assistant, I said, if you need an extra teacher, I do teach master classes, and they're like, this is perfect because we can do staff meetings and then you can teach company class. And so I enjoyed company class aspect, and that kind of led me thinking about moving beyond just teaching and my dancing career. And I have to say it's more satisfying knowing that I've able to help the dancers than it was like to dance well myself. I feel it's a different satisfaction. And I think part of that is I've always enjoyed the communication and the relationship with another person, so I enjoyed part of their work very much, more so than doing a great variation. And to work with a dancer, and then when they're committed and they have that passion, and they need somebody in the front of the room who's on their side and who can help them and bounce ideas off with them. And then when you see a performance and you see that come across on stage, it's actually the best feeling. And I think that's why there's a passion for teachers and coaches, whether that be in sports or in academia. And I think the same thing in dance. When you have that relationship with people and you're able to help them achieve their dreams, it's something very special. I normally do not get nervous for the dancers because I've seen, for me the most important is the work we do in the studio, and I see that work, and I don't question whether or not they can have the ability to do it on stage. I also try to help them get rid of nerves and the emotional stress of like, oh, I have to perform. And it's like, we've done the work. You're doing something on stage. You've done all these moves. There's not a move you haven't done. Just go out there and do the work. That being said, I was nervous for the first show of Louis. And that was probably one of the first times since I've been in this job that I was nervous, because there were so many elements with the orchestra, with technical lighting, videos, electronic music, syncing with the orchestra, that the dancers were very needed to have specific moments of that happening, all coming together. So there's a lot of things that are out of my control. I wasn't necessarily nervous for the dancers, but in terms of the production, there's so many moving pieces. I was hoping it would all come together. And I will say for the opening night, it was the best it ever went. So I was very happy. Even in the show, it gets a little bit there. Instead of, I think you have to just, I know, understand the momentum's going that direction.
Yeah,
yes.
yes.